Once upon a time, in a small coastal town where the sea wind carried the smell of salt and old wood, there lived a woman named Nora. She was 30 years old, and she had come home. Not joyfully, not triumphantly. She had come home quietly, with one suitcase and a heart that felt like a stone left out in the rain. Her marriage had ended, and with it, a whole version of herself. Nora grew up in this town. She knew its narrow cobblestone streets, its little harbor, its rows of painted fishing boats bobbing in the gray morning water. She knew the bakery on the corner and the way the church bell rang at 7 each evening. But after 10 years away, she did not know how to belong here anymore, and that not knowing sat heavily in her chest every single day. So she tried. She baked lemon cake and brought slices to neighbors who smiled politely and set them aside. She joined the Wednesday sewing circle, though her hands had never touched a needle with any grace. She attended the Saturday markets, laughing loudly at jokes she did not find funny, nodding along to opinions she did not share. She agreed with everyone. She became whoever the room seemed to need her to be. And still, at the end of each day, she walked home alone. Nobody called, nobody knocked, nobody saved her a seat. She told herself she simply needed more time. She tried harder. She said yes to everything. She made herself smaller, softer, easier, more agreeable. But the lonelier she felt, the more frantic her trying became. And the more frantic her trying, the further away everyone seemed to drift. One stormy evening in October, Nora sat at her kitchen window watching the rain come sideways off the sea. The street below was empty and gray. She was just about to close the curtains when she noticed something. Across the narrow lane in the small stone house with the crooked chimney, a light was burning warm and golden. That was Edmund's house. Edmund was her neighbor, an elderly man, a retired lighthouse keeper, white-haired and slow-moving, who she had never once seen at any gathering, any market, any circle or event. He lived alone. He kept mostly to himself. And yet tonight, even in the storm, there was a knock at his door. A fisherman in a yellow coat. Edmund let him in. 20 minutes later, 2 children ran up the steps with a handwritten note. Edmund read it, wrote something back, sent them on their way with biscuits. Then the mayor's car pulled up. Nora sat very still and watched. People came to Edmund the way the tide comes to shore, steadily, naturally, without being called. He had not attended a single gathering she could remember. He had not knocked on any doors. He had not tried to be liked, and yet here they all were, finding their way through a storm to reach him. The next morning, Nora walked across the lane and knocked on his door herself. Edmund answered in a gray cardigan, holding a mug of tea. He looked unsurprised, as though he had been expecting her for some time. She asked if she could come in. He stepped aside. His house was warm and deeply lived in. Shelves of tide charts and hand-drawn maps lined every wall. There were wooden carvings on the windowsills, boats, birds, a small lighthouse no taller than a hand. Stacks of journals sat beside a worn armchair. The whole room smelled of cedar and old paper. Nora sat across from him at the kitchen table. She wrapped her hands around the mug of tea he placed in front of her. She did not know how to begin, so she simply said what was true. I have been trying so hard to belong here, and I am so tired, and nothing is working. Edmund looked at her for a long moment. He did not rush. He did not offer empty comfort. What have you been trying to do? He asked. To be welcomed, to make friends, to be useful, to be included. He nodded slowly. And when you do those things, the visits, the joining, the bringing of things, are you being yourself, or are you being whoever you think they want? Nora opened her mouth, then closed it. Edmund set down his mug. He said it gently, as a man says something he has learned the long and difficult way. People can feel the difference, Nora. They can feel when you are real and when you are performing. And a performance, no matter how good, is exhausting to be near forever. Nobody wants to be someone else's audience forever. She looked at her hands. "So what do I do?" she asked quietly. "You stop trying to earn your place," he said, "and you start building one. Find the one thing that is truly yours, not the thing you think will impress anyone, the real thing, the thing you would do even if nobody ever saw it. Build that. Give yourself to that, and trust that the people who are meant to find you will find you." Nora walked home slowly. She thought about what was truly hers, and she remembered. Before the marriage, before the moving away, before all the years of becoming someone else, she had loved history, quietly, privately, deeply. She had loved old photographs and handwritten letters and the stories they carried. She spent her whole childhood afternoons in the town's small archive room above the library, turning pages carefully, learning the names and faces of people long gone. That archive had been closed for 11 years. The last keeper had moved away, and nobody had taken over. The photographs were dusty and unsorted. The letters were bundled in old string. It was forgotten. It was exactly the kind of thing nobody would notice. It was exactly the kind of thing that was hers. Nora contacted the mayor. She asked for the key. He seemed surprised anyone remembered the archive existed. He gave her the key the same afternoon. She began going every morning. She sorted, she cleaned, she cataloged. She held each old photograph gently, the way you hold something that has been waiting a long time to be found. She wrote careful notes on small cards. She asked old families for any letters they might be willing to share. She told nobody what she was doing. She simply did it. After about 6 weeks, word began to spread, the way word does in a small town, quietly, from one person to the next. The fisherman whose grandfather's wedding photograph she had found came with tears in his eyes and a box of old letters. The school teacher brought her class to see the archive. 2 elderly sisters arrived one morning with a tin full of photographs from 1923, photographs nobody alive had ever seen before. People began to knock. Not because Nora had asked them to, not because she had tried to charm them or join their circles or bring them unsolicited cake, but because she had built something real, something rooted, something that asked nothing of anyone and gave everything to the place they all loved. By spring, the archive had become something the whole town was proud of. Nora was not the newcomer anymore, nor the woman who had come home after a broken marriage, nor the one who tried too hard at the Wednesday sewing circle. She was simply Nora, and she was exactly where she belonged. One afternoon, the old fisherman who had been first to knock sat beside her at the archive table, carefully placing a new set of photographs in a protective sleeve. Without looking up, he said quietly, "You know, I always wondered why that archive stayed closed so long. I think it was just waiting for the right person." Nora smiled and said nothing. She understood. Perhaps you have felt it too, that exhausting hunger to be chosen, to be included, to earn a place in someone else's circle. But here's what Nora discovered, and what Edmund already knew. The right belonging cannot be chased, it can only be grown. When you stop performing for others and start building something true within yourself, something shifts quietly, powerfully, and the world begins to find its way to your door. You do not have to be everything to everyone. You only have to be fully, honestly, quietly yourself. That will always be enough. The moral of this tale: the deepest belonging comes not from seeking a place among others, but from building something so rooted and genuine within yourself that the world naturally gathers around it.